Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, Alex, and with me I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, look, I'm pretty good. Can't complain. Couple of strong goal-scoring performances since the 0-0 on the opening day, so pretty happy.
Yeah, I feel like with these, even if it's a strong performance, if it's a 0-0, it just feels like there's less to talk about because there's less noteworthy actions in a game. So to have a week where we've come away scoring 6 goals in 2 games, it feels like there's a whole lot more to talk about. But we'll try and keep it not too rambly for the 2 games, but I feel like we might have a little bit to say on that Oxford game without getting too carried away with ourselves. But we'll start with the Wrexham game, which at least went to script, went to expectation, I suppose, in terms of City not getting through to the next round. But I certainly made the mistake with this one of watching the replay with no spoilers, getting to about the 90th minute with us up 3-1, and I would say dominating the ball, and flicking on our City chat going, oh, how good's this, boys? And then scrolling up and seeing a few comments of, I can't believe we lost that. And I was just like, it's that typical sort of Twitter, like, this was the score at this minute, and then they went on to lose. But did you watch the game live, or how did you see that one?
It was look, it was a devastating sort of end to that. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's what Carabao Cup. Like, it's not really a few extra games here and there to some fringe players, would have been good, especially with, a few guys maybe coming back from injury soon. Could have been good opportunities for them to get some, extra game time. But the manner of the defeat was probably the just the most frustrating part, as you say, to have dominated, to have built such a strong position in that game, to have scored some really nice goals and played really well, and then to cop 2 really cheap goals really, really quickly, pretty much when the game is almost done. I know it was like 7 minutes of injury time or something added, and it was sort of the first couple of those. But I just think I think it was we really did switch off there. But I think like I think as like Djukanovic said after the game that we did lots of good things, and yes, it was frustrating that we did switch off those, but we take that as a learning opportunity, and we identify those areas, those moments as things that we need to work on, and we sort of improve on that going forward. So yeah, look, I think the positives include McBurnie gets a goal, and Darla gets a goal. So I think there are some nice stories out of that.
One of the stranger goals for Ndala, obviously hitting I don't know what you'd even call it, like the bottom crossbar on the goal.
Oh, yeah.
Where even our own commentator thought it was saved, and you're going, I'm pretty sure that went in. And all the players run off to celebrate, and you're like, yeah, I think that went in.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that maybe once or twice at training or whatever before, where you hit it, just low enough, and but it's sort of not on the ground, but it's not sort of floating too high, and it just pings that and bounces back out. He got it just right to be extra confusing. But I think we've had a few of those sorts of goals and shots just over these first few games already, because I think without jumping too far ahead, like even I think Joffy had a couple of chances against Oxford that looked like they were in but weren't, or looked like they'd missed but were in. So it's been look, it was a bit of a whirlwind game. I think sort of, I guess, like as I expected, that Wrexham were going to come out not willing to throw the game away as they sort of did, or let a game slip away from them as they did on their opening fixture. So I think they really came and pushed hard to obviously to get something out of that. That's obviously something they're targeting is I guess trying to get going. Maybe get a bit of a cup run. Could be really good for them up at this level. But I mean, overall, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with the performance to go from 0-0 against Coventry and then go like we look really good, but we just need to work on that, like that final pass, that finishing, and then go, like, a few days later we go, well, here's 3 goals. I think that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
And even even the shootout, like you look at like Indala's miss, for example, and that was inches away from being probably the best penalty of the lot of all 10 or 9 or 10 that were taken. Like it was inches away from being like bullet top corner, like perfect. And that's a lot of balls for a 19-year-old to go for that. It's a high risk, high reward sort of a pen. Like we saw almost all the other pens just picking a low corner and going for it. So I think it- you know he I think sorry, I'm all over the place, but I think that they said that the managers never won a penalty shootout. I think I heard them say in the call, or that he
As
said that he'd
in,
never won a shootout or something. Like as
yeah, well,
a
I
as a
did see the
manager,
comment.
I think he's never.
Yeah, I saw the
I was
comment that
like,
like I think he didn't want it to go to pens. I didn't see why, but okay, that makes sense.
I think it was something like that. That he's as a manager never been had a team like be successful in the shootouts, something. But um, yeah, look, it was. I think like the biggest disappointing thing is, I guess, you give away a 2-goal lead in a couple of minutes right at the end of the game. But I think there's so many more positives to take out of it, and it's so early in the season. It's not like it's a crucial game,
No.
really.
And I
So
think, yeah, and I think for me, well, first of all, silver lining. I mean, we're going to be on an episode of Welcome to Wrexham to show their sort of fairy tale heroics at the end of the game. But no, I think for us, you look at like I think Palmer. I think I said at the time I described it as suspiciously good game from him. Now he's backed it up against Oxford, so I'm sort of retracting it a bit. At the time, I was thinking I could have, like, maybe I imagined it. I thought he got linked to Wrexham at some point over the window. So I was like, is he playing for a move? Like, is he playing really well to try and be like, come get me? So I thought Palmer looked excellent. I thought McBurnie had that chance in the first half where his footwork sort of sat the Wrexham player down on his ass and had that sort of outside of his foot shot at the keeper. Where I think for me, that was probably maybe my realization that actually McBurnie's not just like your sort of comparing him to say like a Kiefer Moore or someone who feels more like a poacher. McBurnie feels much more rounded in his game, and we saw more of that against Oxford, where I think his footwork is really quite proficient for a striker, and he can add a lot in that sort of element of the game, even more so than like a Pedro did last year, I think. So I think he's a really big upgrade in that space. Obviously, I think like Gelhardt and Darla just seems to be getting better week on week, or game on game, I should say. Gets the goal, so he's got a bit more confidence coming out of that. And yeah, look, as you sort of started by saying, like it's a cup game, it's not the end of the world. It's more the positives, I guess, of getting that confidence and opportunity for those guys to play together ahead of the Oxford game that was really the benefit from this game. Phillips in goal. I mean, I don't know if we want to touch on him and like what we think of his. Like, do you put the goals conceded down to him? Is it more down to the defenders sort of switching off? Like, where do you land on keep? And we'll probably have another similar debate about Panda in the second Oxford goal, but keeper versus defenders in terms of responsibility.
it's a tough one. I think it's a little bit messy because so we played Hughes and
Egan, was it?
Egan for about 86 minutes or something, and then
Family comes
Famewo comes on.
Yeah.
Yeah, Famewo comes on, and we cop the goals. And
Who
I
did he come
think
on
there
for? Was
were.
it for Egan?
I think so.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
I think
no, did it? Was it? Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it might
Egan
have
went
been.
off.
Yeah.
Egan went off. Yeah. On the weekend, I think he came on for someone else, and they went to a
Yeah, they went like back 3 or something. Yeah.
for like 2 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. Um, but I I think there's a little bit. I do think that as defenders in both of those Oli Palmer goals, that individually the defense should have been better. We should have made those headers, been able to be closer to the attackers, whatever. But there is also some not great goalkeeping on display. So it wasn't. I don't think it was a performance that really painted the best picture of Phillips, but
Well, considering last season, Rachopi had one gaff
mm,
against Sheff Wednesday and was basically had his papers stamped in a League Cup game, no less. I don't know what that means for Phillips doing similar this year. I mean, not a gaff so much. I think, like you say, like
mm,
I'll talk about it more with Panda. I don't want to linger on it too much, but I think as a keeper, there's so little that you're expected to do well. Shot stopping, reflexes, and then I guess these days it's a bit of passing as well. That you really should be. If you're going to be a good keeper, you need to be like working on that and really on top of that. And so if the criticism is, he was too slow getting down or his reflexes or whatever, you kind of go, apart from exceptional circumstances, like I just feel like he needs to be doing a little bit better to get down for those. Maybe he doesn't save them anyway, but it just felt like he was very much just ball watching and not really expecting the shot to come in, which again, like maybe there is an element that the defenders should be doing better to clear the ball. But look, I guess we just take it and move on. We've got Cam showing some dedication here. We've got Cam watching along from a bar. So hopefully you have a drink for us, Cam. My voice isn't actually because of a heavy night last night. I do actually just have a cold. So I haven't been on the beers, but I probably should have had one after that McBurnie winner against Oxford, which we will go on to talking about now. It's the sort of game where I'm like, I don't want to be sitting here next week saying, oh, we're going to get relegated if we've lost 4-0 to Blackburn. And then the week after saying, oh, we're going to get promoted. But this is the sort of game where it's hard not to get carried away or optimistic about our prospects for the season based on not just the result, but actually just the performance of the playing group.
Yeah, a really positive performance. With some real grit and determination shown. Oh, again, like there were a couple of pretty soft goals conceded. The caveat, I think that even though probably Lankshears needed a little bit more pressure on him, that was a real good finish.
Yeah.
The volley sort of almost outside of the boot, bottom corner. I think credit where it's due. That was really good. The other one, to let the second goal at Brannigan or whatever from 20 yards or something as it popped out of the box to, and two, I think it was Gelhardt and Palmer, neither really got enough pressure on him to impact the shot. And then it travels through some players and then.
Yeah, that's it. I take the point that Panda's unsighted with that one. But for me, if a keeper's getting hands or a hand on a shot, you should be saving it. You just need a stronger wrist. And it's put it this way, like I think Panda would be really annoyed that it went in. So I think it's fair enough for us to be annoyed that it's gone in. If like Panda getting a hand to it should be pushing that clear rather than what he did, which was essentially pushing it into the side netting. So I think that's where my frustration lies for that one. I fully accept it's through bodies. He's seeing it late, but as I was saying with the Phillips one, I think he gets down to it. So he's got the reflexes to get down to it. He's got the reach to get a hand to it. He should be saving it, I think.
Yeah, I think that one for me is more clear cut that Panda, like that I think he really should have been saving that, as you say, like gets a hand or two to it.
Yeah.
And in that case, if you're getting hands to it, there's really no reason why you and it's not like it was just like it was good hands. It wasn't like it was a fingertip push. He had proper hands.
Whole part.
He should have been doing a lot better with that one. I guess the caveat again, lots of caveats in this episode, but is that Oli McBurnie was there to save the day. I
didn't clock that he got both assists. So 2 assists and a goal.
I didn't either. I think I barely even shoot. I obviously had the stream up and the game had started and I was like,
settling into my seat.
I think I was still getting my drink ready or something, and then I look up and Joffrey's running into the box and taking a shot, and I was like, "Oh, we've scored already!"
I was just like,
I didn't even see the. I was like,
"Is this a highlight?"
It was the flick from McBurnie around the corner that sort of set him off on the run. So
yeah, I was like, "Is this a highlight from a previous game, or like has the game even started?" I was just like, You had that moment of like, what just happened? Like he's just scored straight away.
Yeah, I think I was just because I just watched the highlights of it before, just to I mostly to have a look at the goals we conceded. But Burnsy said that when he looked down at the clock and it was about 1:12 or something on the clock when and he goes that it could have been even earlier than that. So it's probably one of our quickest goals in a game. So I think this was a really important game. I guess like a couple of obviously like the home to start at least addressing that home form, try and get off on the right foot. I think had we not won this game, then those same sort of questions rear their head again about the woeful home form and what that's going to look like and everything. But we had a good crowd, another 20,600, something like that. We had a really strong team starting 11. Like the only player that you would get that you based on the previous week that you would have put in would have probably been Ajayi, but he's obviously out for a month or so. So as strong of an 11 as you can get. And we had goals from 3 of our attacking assets. So I think it's really hard not to be pretty positive and pretty excited about this game and sort of its implications going forward. I think a really hard fought 0-0 draw on opening day, followed by 6 goals in 2 games. With McBurnie's now got 2. Ndala's got 1. Gelhardt's got. Yeah, Crooks has got 2. Gelhardt's off the mark. Like, and you go, we got all of these attacking players in form, and Casey Palmer as well in form, even without actually scoring goals yet. Looked real good. So I think there's just I think we are setting that platform that we really need. Everyone always talks about the first 10 games. Of the season as sort of benchmark of where you're going to finish. And I think, we've got 4 from 6. Yes, it's only two games in, but we're starting to set that platform for a really positive season. And I think the thing that's going to, the thing that is probably going to, that could pull us apart, touch wood, is injuries. If like McBurnie, went down and was out for a while, I think that would have a big impact. I think he's like already turning into that talismanic striker that you want, someone who knows where the net is, can pop up at the right time and score goals.
Yeah, as Cam says, it's what it feels like to have an actual striker.
Yeah, look, it's been a little while since we've had someone who, like as you say, like surprisingly good, with ball at his feet, can dance his way through defenders, but also just really, really like knowledgeable, like about when is the right time to run, when's it the right time to pass, when's the right time to hold it up, which we kind of saw on full display in the Oxford game. Moved into the right spot on the edge of the channel, receives the ball, flicks it around the corner for Gelhardt to make the run, and awesome work from Gelhardt. To have that defender backpedaling and sends him the wrong way, and low hard to the near post and gets inside the keeper, which is awesome. But then, I think even the winner, I think especially, there's lots of strikers who snatch at that as they're sort of waiting for it to bounce. But I guess like the defenders aren't really pressing him, but he's waiting for that right moment. He's waiting to make sure that he's going, I have to bury this. So he's taking his time with it, and lots of strikers, and even like Kyle Joseph. Had he been in that position, I don't think we score and I don't think we win that game. And that's not to say that he's useless. We're still waiting for him to get going. I think, but McBurnie is going to be a big player for us. And I guess when you look at all the things where the contract or the like negotiations were at, like, can you get me 15 goals this season? He was like, yeah.
We'll have them by November.
Just about. He's got 2.
Yeah. Got two already in 2 games, a couple more assists. He's creating goals as well. I think that's right. Like the composure to wait for, because the Oxford players are steaming back. Instead of taking that shot straight away, it's almost waiting for the Oxford players to like overcommit or keep running past him, and then actually opens up some space for him to sort of poke it in near post. And we haven't even talked about the Crooks goal as well, where I think that's the thing with McBurnie, but also it just feels like we've now got really smart players in those forward positions where players, clearly a directive from the manager to be running forward, to be somewhat overcommitting. And so I've made the comment, I think yesterday, about it'll be interesting to see how we go against, a Birmingham or a Southampton in the league. Putting a lot of players forward, but what that means is that we then have players making runs, making movement, creating space. It then means that a Gelhardt or a McBurnie can see that, or Palmer can see that movement and actually play really smart balls through into opportunities to create scoring chances. And I think the heartening thing for me was second half, Oxford clearly went, crap, this isn't what we were expecting from City. Let's move to a back five, contain them, sort of nullify them. And even when they did that, we were still running at them, creating chances, winning corners. And McBurnie wins it at the end by just sort of wearing them down. You bring on like Akintola and Joseph, and we've got and Kamara. We've got this running power off the bench as well, where you think teams are kind of going to get pretty exhausted by us, and then we can just bring on fresh bodies to just keep running at them. And so you said before, the big sort of flag or concern for the season is injuries. And I think as well it's potentially self-sabotage. I know that there's a lot of talk of Kamara being sold, where my worry is if before the window closes we kind of go and say, okay, yep, we'll sell Kamara. There's been a bit of paper talk about Panda being offered around as well. I don't think that's going to happen. But if we sell a couple of players to balance the books, you don't want to, you kind of think, if we were say 8th in the table come January, I'm sure Jun would splash the cash as much as he could or do whatever he could to give us a chance of promotion. So in my mind, why not say, look, the squad's clearly in a quite good position at the moment. It's quite balanced. Why pull pieces out of it in order to potentially have to put pieces back in January? Like, why not just try and hold what we've got and then see where that squad's at in January? Maybe Kamara goes and gets, 5 or 6 goals between now and January, and we actually can sell him for even more in January, So that's probably the one for me that's my concern. But I just think like you can see the manager's imprint on this side. We could see it against Coventry, and it just sort of clicked against Oxford. And I think there's some pretty encouraging signs for the next few games.
Yeah, I mean, just a sort of final sort of note, as you sort of alluded to with them switching, I think the biggest thing was like probably over the last couple of seasons, it's very, very much felt like we had plan A, and if plan A didn't work, we tried plan A again. And, like where...
Plan A, but better.
Yeah.
Was Andrew's comment? I don't have a plan B. I've got plan A, but better, or whatever it is.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, it was like, oh, we're going to do this. And then when teams sort of figured that out and nullified that, it was like, well, we'll just keep doing the same thing. Whereas, as you sort of said, like on the weekend, the first half was lots of these big raking diagonal balls, setting Ndala and Gelhardt free. And then they dropped in, at halftime, dropped in a third centre back. They went to a back five, filled that space out. So there wasn't really that option there. So instead of trying those diagonals, then we went, well, we'll just play it through the lines. We'll play it, McBurnie into get those guys into the channels, play it to them, drop it back. But get Giles and Drame running forward to sort of help then release, just release those same guys, but just in a sort of a different sort of a manner. And you saw, like, especially for that last goal, Giles, comes a bit higher. Kamara, plays to Kamara. Beautiful little like back heel flick into the channel for Giles to.
I did think that, and I have seen a replay that suggests it wasn't actually Kamara that flicked it. I think it comes off the defender, which is a real shame because it does look like a really great flick from Kamara, but I think it does actually come off the defender.
Don't tell me you don't think there was an intent from Kamara to give it back to, like, even if it didn't, like, if it wasn't necessarily like a perfect thing.
Kamara still plays a massive part in it because he's sort of forcing the action. Yeah, you're right. Like, it's still really intelligent from Kamara. Yeah. He knows he's trying to get it through to Giles. Yeah.
And then Giles with a great run into the channel, into space, gets into the box, looks up, puts it straight to McBurnie, a little bit bobbly, who takes his time, buries a bottom corner, just and
I
like,
think
and it was that
McBurnie's
thing
gonna
where we
love playing
would,
with Giles.
yeah, I think it's that thing where we went like, we sort of didn't really hold on, and we gave away some cheap goals against Wrexham. And you go, well, what I hope then, to the next game is that we don't make those same mistakes. And we kind of did give the goals away, but we sort of went, well, we have to get over the top of them then. And we have to get that third goal, and we have to win this game. And they found it, they just pushed and pushed and pushed, and managed to get it done. And not just barely, by the way. I think the stats were very
Yeah.
overwhelmingly in our favor. It was 70% possession and far more attacking opportunities. And
But it's such a different sort of, like, we've talked so much in the last few seasons where we actually look worse when we have more of the ball because teams can sit back and clog up that space, and we just don't really know what to do with it. And so we actually play better on the counter. Whereas now it feels like if teams give us 60, 70% of the ball, we are going to hammer some teams.
Yeah, I think, I mean, without going through and just talking about how good every player was on the weekend, I think Lundstrom
Yeah.
had a really, really good game again. I thought he was really good against Coventry, and but seemed to. I thought he sort of faded out a little bit in the second half. But I thought against Oxford, he was 90 minutes just directing, just screening across in front of the back four, receiving, dropping in, getting the ball, starting all of those plays. And just I thought he was sensational. And it's hard. It's going to be really hard to pick the signing of the season when we get to the end of the season based on the form of some of these players already. But like McBurnie, Lundstrom both look immense.
Probably the best range of passing we've had in a midfielder since Huddleston, I'd say. And I don't think that's going overboard. I think like that sort of those long diagonals, like you're saying, I can't think of someone we've had since who has that same sort of range of passing.
It actually got some legs to get around and move around as well.
That's it.
Unlike Huddleston.
Yeah. If we're talking signings of the season, I mean, how's this, Ryan Giles bloke that we've picked up from somewhere? I haven't seen him play in a City shirt before this season, but boy, is him and Kone Drame as well. Like, I saw someone on Twitter saying, we've got these great, maraudering fullbacks this season and how it's helping us so much. I think we had both of them to start last season as well, but it shows, I think, I don't want to keep harping on about former managers, but all the cop-outs and comments about Volta saying, it's going to take some time to bed his style in and we've got to be patient. Look at Jakirovic. He's just come in and just been doing it from the start, and the players responding to it. And you're getting performances out of Drame and Giles at fullback that we just didn't see at all last season. And they've both been, immense for us. They both played 90 minutes in all three games, I want to say.
I think so.
And you look at, I was just going to say Giles, like that, the assist for McBurnie, but also I think it was in the first half, Palmer or someone pops the ball over the top for him, and the defender looks to be first to it, but Giles powers past him to win it. In seasons gone by, Giles would have just gone, dropped his head, yelled something at Palmer about not placing the ball, and stropped about it. But he looks like he's a man on a mission this season.
Yeah, I mean, actually, just on that point, before I say the other thing I was going to say, because I think I mentioned in the chat that one of the most promising things about Giles has been, I guess, how passionate he is at the moment. I think in the Wrexham game, he was screaming at Slater or someone, or was it? Might have been the Coventry game when there was a half chance or something, but he's screaming, players aren't getting out to attackers, and he's screaming at them, saying, "You've got to get there." And then I think on the weekend it was, against Oxford, there was a moment where he was going to run in behind, and Akintola had the ball and he overhit the pass, and then and you see Giles turn and go not abusing him, but saying "Hey, you need to calm down. That was a good opportunity, and you just you've got to get that weight of that right." Because I think it's obviously still 2-2 at that moment, and he's I think, as you sort of say, in years gone by, those passes, they happen, and he just goes, "Well, that didn't happen. We didn't get that one," and he just sort of strops and stuff about it. But I think it's sort of he's giving a very different vibe, this year in terms of his intensity and his involvement and his output, and I guess a little bit just how much he cares. And I think that sort of comes back to the point that I was going to make, is about managers and how clear they are with what they want, their style of play, etc., etc., etc. Because I think in the moments, like in the few interviews and things I've heard from Jukiewicz, he seems pretty clear. Like he seems pretty direct, pretty clear about what he expects, what he wants. Says I think again after the Wrexham game, we need to be better in the man marking in those situations. There's no sort of beating around the bush. Whereas if you look back, 12 months to some of the interviews with Walter, he just was just a bit of a mumbling, bumbling fool. You didn't really know what he was trying to say or what his plan was or anything. So I think that's I think a key component of this as well. We've got a manager who just says hey, this is how we're going to play. You guys go out, play football, execute, do your thing. And I think they're given some of that license to attack and to do the things that they want to do without, I guess, not that directive of, if the option's not there, play it, just play it back to the keeper or play it to the centre back and we'll just hold possession because there's been a few moments where we have done that in games, but, it's a few passes. It's not, 5 minutes of just going back and forth across the back line waiting. It's, we have a few and then someone just, goes to lunchroom and he just goes, that's it, on your bike, Gelhardt. Let's just put this down over the top, down the back. Let's get moving. Let's get going forward. Let's turn the defense around. So,
and I think the McBurnie winner started with Panda playing it out to Hughes, I want to say. So there's no, and this is, I think, ultimately, again, as I said, I didn't want to harp on former managers. I mean, I think this is ultimately where we thought we might be getting to with Rossini, where we did have a few games at the end of that season, for example, against Ipswich, where we did play that very fast transition, high octane football. It was just a side that maybe was their youth, or maybe they just didn't really know how to execute it, or we didn't have the personnel, or whatever it might be, or maybe it's just Rossini as a manager was less experienced, a whole range of things. But Jukiewicz, as you say, has clearly come in and has a very clear identity. I think it's heartening as well. I think he, in one of his first interviews, sort of said he's flexible as a manager to the personnel that he's got. So I think there's that element as well where you go, who do I have at my disposal? Who can I get in? Where can I kind of find a meeting in the middle of going, this is what my vision for the side is, and how can I achieve that with who I've got? And so I think you sort of said before about, injuries potentially undoing us, but I'd like to think, whilst obviously you start to test the depth of the squad, maybe we don't play as well. I think that's quite natural. You'd hope that Jukiewicz then will have ideas on how he can then adjust the style of play to suit who he has available at any given time. So that will be interesting as well. I'll throw to you, though, for votes from this one, if you've got 3 players you can single out.
I do. I think the 1 point was the hardest one to give out because I think there were so many good candidates, including Matt Crooks, who does not get get any votes from me, actually. But I gave a 1 point to Ndala because I thought he was in the, whatever he played, 70 or so minutes, 70, 80 minutes he played, was just outstanding. Really wanted to get on the ball, willing to, I think, wander a little bit as well, come inside, try and make things happen. Some great footwork, some really nice, take-ons and things like that, but didn't shirk his defensive duty either. Was down there helping Giles out in the corner a few times. So I think, as you sort of said before, another really promising display, from the 19-year-old it's his second, or I guess third senior appearance now. He looked really, really good. I went 2 points to Gelhardt, who,
nice.
I just think that obviously the goal that gets us going, he has a couple of more really good chances as well.
His footwork, again, he's another one his footwork is just so good at opening and creating space.
Yeah, I thought he had just a really positive game. I'm just trying to, because there's a shot that goes straight at the keeper. There's one at the near post on the right hand near post, which hits the outside. There's one on the other side, I think, that hits the outside of the netting. Really, really, really solid display. And it is hard not to give 3 points to a man who gets a goal and 2 assists, to get us our first win of the season, our first home win of the season. And I think just, so Oli McBurnie with 3 points for me.
Yeah, I think it's always a great sign. We've got two of the three different players. So I've gone Lundstrom for the one vote. I mean, we called him out earlier. I think he pulls the strings so much on our play. I think his fitness base is clearly improving even just after a week. I think he ran this one out really well. His diagonals, his ability to open up that space and open up the game, whether it's playing in a Giles or a Gelhardt or whoever it might be, it just keeps the opposition guessing. So I thought he had a fantastic game. I gave 2 votes to Giles. I think, I can't overstate how much I think he's really looking so much more positive and attacking this season. And I think it shows as well, like a comment I think I made last season about the downside of Volta being not just the losses, but also the devaluing of players that we'd spend a lot of money on, where you think even if we had to tear it up and start again, you're suddenly going, we've spent 4 million on Giles, he's now worth 500k. What do we do with that? Whereas now it's the opposite, where we're saying we could have given him away in the summer. We could have, like, at the start of the summer, just gone, like, let's just make a clean break for both parties. He's turned it around, and you go, he's starting to, if he puts a few more displays like this together, show the player that was worth £4 million in the first place. And you suddenly go, we don't need a new left back. And all of a sudden, Premier League or higher championship clubs suddenly go, actually, we'll offer sort of 5, 6, 7 million for him. And you go, all of a sudden, you started turning it around and getting players who are actually creating value in the squad. But then, I couldn't go past McBurnie for the 3. I think he was head and shoulders above for the 3 votes. And you always love a striker getting off the mark in his first league outing for the side. It's, a good, confident way to start things. So hopefully that continues for him against Blackburn this weekend, which will round things off by talking about 3 losses to start the season for them, 2 in the league, 1 in the cup. So, dare I say it, it's a game that's there for the taking to an extent for us again, where granted they were 1-0 up against Birmingham until the 90th minute and then did very much what we did against Wrexham and conceded 2 goals in quick succession. But it's the sort of game where you go, you talked about the first 10 games of the season being quite important. It's the sort of game where if we win that, you do have to start reevaluating sort of targets for the season and expectations for the season, I think.
Yeah, look, if you manage to get 7 points from the first 3 games, then that's obviously, as you very early days, but I guess the sample size grows every game we play, and if you continue picking up points, then I think it's not unrealistic to. I just want my call for top 6 finish. Yes. Overly optimistic call for a top 6 finish isn't looking so ridiculous now.
No, it's not.
But look, I think we get game on game, performance on performance. I think even I sort of said that a bit tongue in cheek in the preview episode, but now it's becoming a more real proposition and a genuine thought, a genuine hope and expectation for me, sort of game on game, which I think is sort of the point you're making. And if we can get the 3 points against Blackburn, then I think we've set a really good, that foundation becomes a little bit stronger, and you probably, after we're going to find ourselves sitting in that top 6 in that area of that end of the table anyway, which I think at the moment we're not too. I think we're 9th or something. Maybe.
I think
it's
it depends on. It depends. No, but it depends on the table you look at. I think the alphabetic different tables have different tiebreakers. So I think in one table I looked at we were 6th, and another we were 7th, and another we were 10th.
But obviously, there's so few games played, and it's obviously going to open up and sort of all reveal itself in due course. But I think, I don't know the last time I can really remember a team where I genuinely expect them to go out and score goals.
Probably the League One season, I reckon.
Yeah, probably, because I think that was one of the things I was thinking about just before when we were talking about just like I think just generally attacking stats and stuff. And I was talking about Joffin having all those shots, and there were games last season where we went and we had like no shots on target in a whole game, and you've got individual players in a game who are getting multiple shots on target, and you like we just generally are looking so much more dangerous and than we have. So I'm pretty positive, like that we'll get at least something. Like we'll get points out of this game, and I'm pretty confident that we can get all three. Unchanged lineup, 2-0 win.
Yeah. Now, of course, we have heard suggestions that Mo Balumi could be on the bench for this one. Even if he's not, the fact that he's that sort of close to the team is such another positive boost where you think the squad's only kind of getting stronger rather than weaker in that sense. So, and I think it must just be such like a heartening thing for someone like him who's been out since Walter was our manager to think, what is happening with this club that I've signed for? Do I need to be, on the first train out of here, or what am I doing? To suddenly be like, oh, actually, hang on, I'm coming back into a side that might be competing at the right end of the table. McLaughlin in the defence for Blackburn, I think Agent McLaughlin, pace probably not his strength against a forward line that includes Gelhardt, Ndala, Kamara potentially as well. I think can cause all sorts of problems for them. And as you say, I think it's the sort of game where we should be getting at the very least a point out of it, and very likely all three. I think, I agree. Probably, I'll say like a 2-1, just because it does seem like we're kind of still finding that balance between attack and defense. But as confident as I can be going into this game, and as you say, all of a sudden you sort of feel like we go into games expecting to score goals, and it's more a case of what's the opposition got to try and match us, rather than us sort of what can we kind of scrap and claw our way to get a result out of in a particular game. So, yeah, look, as positive as I can be. I think, if I'm not mistaken, is this the last game before the international break, or is there another one just before the international break? I'm just thinking in terms of those ACL injuries. We've got Blackburn this weekend at 9:30 as well, I might add. So that's a great time for us in Australia. I appreciate it's not as nice for people in the UK, but it's a positive for us. Actually, we've got Bristol City the following week, just before the international break. But
and then I think Miller is supposed to be back just after the break as well.
That's right. So it's almost like we get through to the
by the end of the international break, you probably got Semi's probably close to being back as well.
Yeah.
Because they said a month.
I'm almost like, I probably wouldn't rush Balumi back. Like I'd say maybe give him, 15 minutes off the bench against Bristol City, but then just like there's no rush. Like let's make sure he's right. Make sure it's not going to, because the last thing you want is bring him back, throw him on against Blackburn and re-injure himself or something. So it's nice to be in a position where we don't feel like we have to rush players back. But yeah, all round positive feelings for this week.
Yeah, look, I think I would be genuinely buzzing if Balumi was on the bench, and if he came and if the game was done. I think especially like if we were 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go. Obviously, we've seen that 2 goal buffer is not maybe necessarily a given, but at that point you could go, yeah, it's pretty safe to give Balumi 10 minutes or something and let him have a run out and sort of. But I think that would be like the cherry on top of a really positive start to the season. And as you say, like those guys coming back, who we know are quality, coming back in where we don't have to rush them back. But they are just adding quality and strength and danger to our team is just about as good as it can be. So
yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great time to be a City supporter, which I don't think we were expecting to be saying maybe a month ago. So thank you for joining me for this one, Dan.
That's all right.
And thanks everyone. Yeah, no problem. And thanks everyone for listening in. We will be back next week to talk Blackburn and look ahead to Bristol City. But until then, come on.